Hi everyone, my name is Bex Batley and I'm going to be giving you a bit of an introduction and whistle-stop tour to our wonderful Walk With Us toolkit, which is a toolkit to support children, young people and families who have been affected or bereaved by suicide. Um, so this toolkit was created on the back of some consultation work that the South Yorkshire and Bassetlaw Integrated Care Board did with individuals who have been affected or bereaved by suicide. And from that, they noted that the sort of provision of support for children and young people is kind of lacking. So on the back of that, they commissioned us, Chili Pep, who are a children and young people's empowerment project, to work with children, young people and families to create a toolkit that would help support them. So we started this at the end of 2021 and now in like October 2022. We are so pleased to launch this. So at the start of the project, we worked with professionals who work with children, young people, and families who have been affected or bereaved by suicide. And we talked to them about what they think is missing, what they found works well, what support is already out there. And then we talked to actual children, young people, and families who have been affected or bereaved by suicide. So we did really informal, like comfortable interviews and like chats, not necessarily about people's like experiences, but more about what helped, what didn't help, what they wish they could have had access to, things like that. And from all these interviews that we did across South Yorkshire and Bassetlaw, we sort of typed them all up and noted any themes, any like consistent gaps, things like that. And we also had a bit of a like steering group, I would say, of young people. Basically, we had a group of young people who had been involved in the interviews who said that they wanted to have more of a hands-on sort of involvement in creating the toolkit. So we wanted, you know, children, young people, and families to be involved as much as possible since they are the experts. So the steering group, I guess I'll call them, were involved in everything from the content, what they think it should look like, the graphics, the design, the themes, and they also chose the name Walk With Us, which is what the toolkit is called. So it's been really important to involve those young people because they've sort of identified like really key important points that professionals who might not have experience with bereavement by suicide would maybe miss. So originally the toolkit was going to be just aimed towards professionals who were supporting children, young people and families. But after involving everyone we interviewed, we sort of noted that they had sort of knowledge and experience that really needs to be passed on to people who might in the future be affected or bereaved by suicide. So the toolkit is actually part for professionals and part for children, young people and families. And we actually have a bit of a graphic system. So in the actual toolkit, there's like a little sticker for what pages are just for professionals. And then there's also a sticker for people who are affected or bereaved by suicide. So one really great example of that is like tips on how to cope in those times, and also dealing with the social media of someone who's passed away, because there's no guidance out there at the minute. So there's like lots of options of what you can do with that person's social media, and sort of pros and cons of each approach as well. So I'm going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the toolkit. And the toolkit can be found on our Chili Pep website. So Chili Pep is spelled CHILYPEP. And it stands for Children and Young People's Empowerment Project. So if you have a look on there, you'll be able to get the toolkit up. So I'll just share my screen. There we go. So this is what the toolkit looks like. The sort of graphics were decided by young people because they wanted the colouring to not just be like grey and black and white, because a lot of the resources they were given were sort of really sort of dull colours, but they wanted it to also be sort of respectful and reflect the fact that it is a really sad kind of period of their life. So that's the basis on the graphic design. So we've obviously got a contents page and information about our funders, who are the NHS South Yorkshire and Bassett Law, and a bit of an intro from Diane Lee, who chairs the group that commissioned us to create the toolkit. And more just sort of detail about the process by which it was created. Some information on what professionals said during those first workshops we did. And then here is one of the like really sort of favourite pages from our young people, they've said. So these are 2 pages of key asks that the people we interviewed have said that need to be in place. So one example is having one worker from somewhere to be a single point of contact to coordinate everything, to help manage family dynamics, to help do phone calls, to keep track of the 1,000,001 things that you have to deal with when you're dealing with a bereavement by suicide. And a lot of people struggled with how disjointed and disconnected and how much responsibility was put on them during a really hard point in their life to coordinate all these things. So there's things here that the police can do, there's things here that schools can do, there's things here that us as a wider society can do, and professionals in general. So these are really worth sort of having a look at. So we've also got instructions on how to talk to children, young people and families about suicide, because that's something that professionals had identified that they had no idea about. They didn't know how to approach it. So we've got some good tips for you here. And then also we have what not to do, which have been based off the people involved sort of experiences themselves that they found really unhelpful. There's also guidance for parents talking to children about bereavement by suicide, and a link to Winston's Wish, which you might know about, which has some really good sort of resources on how to talk to a child about bereavement, really. Here are some practical things that everyone can do to support someone who's bereaved by suicide. And then tips from survivors to those bereaved by suicide. So the children, young people and families who will be accessing the toolkit in the future. Things like self-care, comfort and support, remembering and questioning. And then we've got a bit for schools. So what children, young people and families have said that they need schools to do in those sort of really hard times. We also have some best practice. So we've heard like some really good things that schools have done that have really helped children and young people when they've been bereaved by suicide. So we're sort of showing off what they've done and sort of using it as an example on what schools can do. There's also some like information and like education on grief as a concept or as a process that our young people said that they found really helpful, because they said that they kind of didn't know what to expect from the process. They didn't know if they were grieving right or wrong, if they were doing it right, you know. So here's some information on sort of theories that there are already, and a reminder that there's no wrong way to grieve, you know. So a lot of people said that they would have found like a physical like toolkit to help them through that initial bereavement. So things like teddies, fidget toys, aromatherapy, things like even like photo paper to put in a printer so that they can print off a picture of the person that they've lost, notebooks, post-it notes, stuff like that, because you know sometimes journaling helps, but also like post-it notes and pens, because there's a lot to write down during phone calls and there's a lot to remember. There's also some self-care tips which are sort of specific to bereavement rather than generalised self-care, and these have all come from children, young people and families who we've talked to, so we know they work for them. There's sort of practical things that people can do in terms of bereavement, and if you just click on them on the PDF, you can sort of go straight through to the website. There's also sort of tips from the people we spoke to people who are bereaved, sort of things that they wish that they knew when they were going through it. So there's more practical stuff. So things around the coroner's court, which is inaccessible at the best of times, and can be really sort of jargony. People don't know how to act. So there's some advice and guidance on there. And then obviously the Help is at Hand toolkit, which you might already know about, which is more towards over 18s, but still has a lot of kind of relevant stuff. So something that our young people said that was like one of the hardest bits of being bereaved was the fact that they sometimes have the responsibility to tell a lot of people, and this is usually done over text, so letting school know, other family members know, their employers, their universities, things like that. So we have created template text that people can just type out and put in their own relevant sort of details, and yeah, they can just send them without having that stress that our young people had to go through. And then what I mentioned earlier about social media, also some myth busting, because there are a lot of myths and misconceptions around a bereavement by suicide, so we just wanted to dispel a bit of that. And we also have this signposting page. So we also identified that a big gap was that people knew that support is out there in South Yorkshire and Basset Law, but they didn't have one central space where they could be like, what can I access in the place that I live? So we have created this sort of map, and if you click on the link, here is this wonderful website that we have created. So it has sort of an overview of the booklet, and then if you have a look here, you can hover your mouse over the different sort of regions, and so the little pinpoints aren't like geographically accurate because some of them are online, and it also has national help and advice, and then also free online resources, so like a guide to the coroner court, which can be really helpful. However, that guide is more about generalized bereavement, and it's not suicide specific, so it might not be completely helpful. So let's nip back to the toolkit. There we go. So we also have a glossary which has so many of the words that you come into contact with when you're dealing with a bereavement by suicide that professionals might assume that everyone knows, but children, young people and families might not necessarily know them. So we've got a full list of terms that have sort of cropped up in people's experiences and got like young person friendly definitions for them. So we've got some notes pages as well. So for example, when you're making one of the millions of phone calls that you have to make when you're dealing with a bereavement by suicide, there's a place that you can sort of write notes and scribble, or if you're using it as a professional, you can write useful information, anything relevant on these pages. And they're a bit bright and they're not just like a blank white piece of paper, so it's a bit nicer. And then we also have doodle pages because the children, young people and families kind of said when they were on these phone calls, sometimes you're on hold for a long time, and sometimes doodling mindlessly is a really helpful thing to do to stop the panic rising. So we've got like a little blank page for that. And then at the very end, we have our thank yous, which has everyone involved, and also the pets that supported us as staff and the children, young people and families as they were going through the process. So thank you to the pets that gave us all of their emotional support and things like that. So that is the end of the Whistle Stop tour of our Walk With Us toolkit. So like I said, if you have a look on the Chili Pep website, you can have a look at the map and have a look at the actual toolkit. If you have any feedback, please get in touch with us, because it would be really sort of helpful. And if you have any sort of pledges of how you're going to use the toolkit, or make sure that it's sort of spread as far and wide as possible, because this is like the first of its kind that we're aware of that's been like totally co-produced with children, young people and families. So it's really important that all of their hard work and effort and all of their energies that went into it is really sort of valuably used. So if you could let us know how you're going to like raise awareness of it, that would be absolutely great. So thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you find the toolkit helpful, and do get in touch with us if you need anything. Thank you.